We are back. Happy 2025 fight fans. We're so happy to see all of you. UFC's holiday freeze ends this weekend with an Apex card, but hey, we're all starving to a point where it doesn't really matter to us. Thanks so much for joining us. If you are new to the show, if you just missed us and forgot after a couple of weeks, my name is Austin Swaim. I am a senior editor for FanDuel Research, and that is my guy, the man, the myth, the long shot legend, Matty Tanner, that joins me today. We break down pretty much every UFC card. We don't have an absurd amount of nonsense going on otherwise. But Matty, Happy New Year to you. We were talking with the producers for the show. There's the Curb Your Enthusiasm bit of when you can still say Happy New Year, but I haven't seen you, so I think it's still appropriate. And we have a reason why this is at a special time. We're here 2:30 Eastern today, and I want you to tell everybody what you're doing tonight that is way cooler than what I'm doing. So why are we doing an early show today, buddy?
We're going to the Orange Bowl tonight. We're betting the farm on Notre Dame. I hope you approve of that bet. Because I'm from Pennsylvania and I'm fading Penn State. So
I will say I liked Penn State, and then James Franklin's press conference yesterday where he kept poking the bear like multiple times is a little concerning. Now, I was a Notre Dame fan when I was a kid, so like I hope Notre Dame wins, so I'm with you in spirit.
Let's go. I got Notre Dame to win it all. Parlay with my birds to win it all in the NFL.
Well, I like the Eagles, especially coming out of the NFC. That's for sure.
Bro, I'm telling you right now, I don't even like betting on my Eagles. Like I usually don't. Like if I bet an Eagles game, I'm doing some like TD same game parlay bullshit.
Sure.
Like I'm telling you right now, we've never had this good of a running game combined with a defense. Like our defense, I think, is the best part about our team right now.
Absolutely.
We have the run game. We have skill. We have players at all the skill positions. Like we're loaded. Like it comes down to Jalen, obviously, but I'll be blown away if the Eagles aren't at least in the Super Bowl. In all honesty, get this shit off my screen. All right, let's talk UFC, bro. I'm so pumped. I already have. I'm gonna spoil it for everyone right now. I have 2 legs of the 3 for the cycle parlay right now. I'm hoping you approve of the first 2, and I'm counting on you to help me get the 3rd leg. I feel really good about this one already. I really do.
Look at the AI has gone too far. There's the cycle parlay, Matty and I up to.
This is like anorexic of us right there. Like
absolutely, that's us on Ozempic is what that is right there. So Matty, before we dive into this card specifically, I want to ask you because you kind of get to wipe the slate clean with a new year, kind of a new season with betting. Do you have a particular New Year's resolution that you are aiming for in UFC?
I want to hit $1 million UFC parlay. I'm going to do it this year.
It's got to be a really special cycle if you're going to risk to win $1 million. But I mean, we felt so good about that first one.
But it doesn't even have to be a cycle lay. It just has to be a UFC lay.
Okay.
So, for example, I think the best way to do it is the round props.
Sure.
You know, if you get some like 3 guys in a round 1 finish parlay or like, you know, something like that, or maybe like a round 3, like you do these crazy round props, the numbers get wild really fast. And again, that's if you want to risk a smaller amount of money to hit the $1 million. I mean, if I wanted to, I could put 10, 20, 30K down to win $1 million, but the losses sting a little bit more, you know?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I think mine is I want to make sure I manage my card size appropriately because of what I got into, which was successful, is I was trying to get the best of the line early in the week, and then all the props would come out and be like, well, I want to tag on here, and I think I'll add KO and round 2, 3 KO, and then all of a sudden, maybe there's an injury or a bad beat, and I'm down 3, 4, 5 units on one fight for like a read that wasn't even wrong. So I think that's my New Year's resolution. I will say I have a hard time seeing myself disagree with you on this card just because I feel so unstrong about it. Like I don't have any definitive takes as we sit here today. Maybe we'll craft them out.
I love this card. I love this card. There are a couple matchups that I'm a little torn on, but I do love this card.
Okay, you guys heard it here first. Matty is the captain of this week's slate because he's got stuff he loves.
Isn't it funny? It's funny how my goal is to like hit a mill and yours is like yours was like the polar opposite, bro. It's like I want to make sure I
manage my units responsibly.
Yeah.
I mean, if you need an introduction, if you're new to our show, that's a perfect example of who the two of us are. But
now we got a long shot parlay. You pick one long shot, I pick one, and we put it in a parlay. Method of victory.
Don't we both like span sub 7-1?
Yeah, we do.
What about McGee sub at 8-1?
The thing is, bro, you print money just taking Tim Means to lose by submission. It really is crazy.
That's plus 7,100 right there. Those two together.
No more last year parlays. The people don't care. We're only as good as what we do now for you guys. So no more showing last year. We're in 2025. It only matters what we hit this week.
It was a pretty special year. It was the first full year we actually even did. It's kind of crazy how time flies. I thought we've been doing this for years at this point. That was the first full year we did. We had 2 long shots at, and we'll certainly want to go. So 2 is the benchmark. We're looking for at least 3.
That 70-1 one flew way under the radar. It was it was a 2-leg parlay, but that just goes to show you not how, I don't want to say how easy it is, but like to win $1 million, at 70-1 right there.
Yeah.
You'd have to put 14K down, but you put one more leg on that 2-leg parlay, and then you throw a few bands on it, you could be right there. It's pretty crazy.
Yes, sir.
Let's talk on the card.
All right, let's dive in. We get to unwrap a late holiday present. 14 fights on UFC Vegas 101. So we'll go through them, starting with this fight here at lightweight. It is a last-minute bout with Joe Solecki stepping in. Not Matty and I's favorite guy after his last fight, but Solecki looking to get back on the horse here against Nurullo Aliev, who was dominant and certainly in his first 2 UFC-affiliated appearances, Matty. So actually, this line, we can't even keep track of some of the line movement here. Aliev up to minus 700 on FanDuel as we sit here right now, with Solecki at plus 440. It is short notice. We know Joe's probably working uphill, but what do you think about this fight in general? Is this a place where we're getting into cycle legs already?
I mean, it just depends what we want to do here, right? Because I think this is probably the easiest decision leg of the card. Like, I think Aliev by decision. But it's like, do you really want to put a minus 210 number in your cycle leg on the decision leg? Now, if we have some big payouts on the other 2 legs, then it's something we could be open to. But I think this fight's simple. Aliev gets the takedowns. He gets threatened. Solecki threatens off his back. Maybe he gets a guillotine on the way down. Maybe something. Maybe there's a small scare earlier in the second round. But at the end of the day, it's going to be a 30-27, 29-28. Aliev, and he just wins this fight by decision in typical Dagestan fashion here. This guy looks like Khabib, but a fighter later on the card actually fights like him. So we'll talk about that in a bit, but I think this is a clear decision win here, unanimous decision, whether it's 3-0 or 2-1.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I think my general lean on this fight is more of a stay away type of environment because, like you said, points is minus 210. I'm a little scared that we haven't seen any sort of submission offense or defense from Aliev at this point. And Solecki is a guy that is a black belt, has gotten subs off his back in UFC. He got back control of Austin Hubbard long ago at this point. And I agree with you. I think the tenor of this fight's actually really easy to predict. Aliev is going to get takedowns. Solecki's just a 20% takedown defense. And we saw Joe sit on bottom for 15 minutes against Grant Dawson in his last fight. You and I had Grant Dawson inside the distance, knockout. We had a few different types of things that we were trying in that fight. And Solecki didn't really make any sort of attempt to get back to his feet. And if that's the case, this fight could stink. I kind of see Solecki plus 900 sub is I think it's like a small sprinkle on principle because to me that's the only way he can win the fight. If you think Solecki is going to win, I would take that in lieu as money line, but I don't have a strong opinion about this fight. If it was a full camp, I think I might be more likely to lean Solecki. Maybe he's able to reverse position, but yeah, you're right. Aliev doesn't train with Khabib, but coming from Tajikistan, similar background, guy is really good at winning a fight like this.
I agree. We're on the same page here. I want to address one comment. We're not calling Bashi, or someone said if you say Bashi is Khabib, just stop. No, we're not talking about Bashi. We'll get to who it is.
I will say analytically it looks a little Habib-like at this point, but that was just the Contender
Yeah.
Series. So we'll get there. Why don't we move forward? Because, these early prelims, I would say this card is littered. It was a thank you note to past me for watching the Contender Series because this card is littered with guys from last Contender Series season. This not of them. Fatima Kline made her debut on short notice against Jasmine Jasdavicius. That was at 125. Tough fight, tough fighter. Now we throw her back to her natural weight class at strawweight against Victoria Dudakova. And Dudakova is someone that we kind of thought had a little intrigue herself. Sam Hughes ended up out hustling her over 3 rounds, and her stock has dipped way down. And so Kline is actually the biggest favorite on the card. She sits minus 900, which is gigantic in women's MMA. But I find some of these props interesting. Kline, an interesting prospect, a young prospect in her own right. What do you think of this line, buddy?
Yeah, I mean, Kline, I think, is at her natural weight now. I think she's pretty much better. She's going to be bigger, stronger. She's going to be better at pretty much everywhere in this fight. Question is, do you trust her to get a finish or not? Or if you look at the decision prop. Let me look at the numbers here on both those. Do you have them?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So Kline to win by points is only minus 155. I expected it to be larger given what we saw with Aliev in the last fight, right?
Yeah.
But then Kline sub plus 350, KO plus 750, and then you get all the way back to Victoria points at plus 800.
I'm telling you right now, that sub number at plus 350 is really sticking out to me.
It is just because, like, the thing with Dudakova that I have circled with a red flag is the gas tank. I mean, she was having her way with Sam Hughes in the first round, and then the gas tank expired. When I said out hustled, it was a cardio difference, and Kline really never stopped competing in those 3 rounds with Jasdavicius. I felt like her gas tank was really good. I said this about Miranda Maverick actually before our break in her last fight, which was super disappointing. If you like Kline at minus 900 here, you probably should like her inside the distance at plus 210, because if she's dominant to a point where she's even threatening a finish at that price, then that's the only way that you can justify the money line. So, like, nobody loses more money on women's MMA unders than me. This could be potentially a spot, but I'm leaning out on Dudakova. Her analytics have really regressed to a spot where I don't see anything she does particularly special. And Kline was this really high level prospect that I wanted to buy. I even bet her against Jasdavicius, which is like a respect of what I think of her and what I thought of her striking in that fight. And I think she'll have those same advantages here.
Yeah, I'm struggling with this one as far as going inside the distance or decision. I'll probably just pass on this fight altogether, truthfully.
Yeah, it's a tough one when the line is so wide, and like I think you and I both agree maybe it shouldn't be, but like I don't want to pick Dudakova to win, so we're kind of left out in the dust. So why don't we move forward here? We'll move up to 205, completely different realm of UFC. A couple of guys that have fought Brenson Romero. Bruno Lopes was knocked out by him in the first round. He ended up getting another shot on the Contender Series, was able to get a second round KO in that one to earn his UFC spot. Magomed Gadzhiyasulov actually just fought Romero in his last fight, won via decision. So Matty, they're matching these guys up. I think you look at the money line and say, well, one guy beat Ribeiro, one guy didn't, so maybe this guy's favored on that lazy MMA math. But there are layers to this matchup. Gadzhiyasulov just minus 260 here on FanDuel Sportsbook, despite a 2-0 UFC record. Do you have any interest in this fight?
Maybe a little bit. I think Magomed, the knockouts plus 310. I think he could even maybe get some ground and pound in this one. The decision's plus 220, so I would lean the favorite here on one of those two outcomes. That submission's plus 400. It feels super short too.
I'm so intrigued by Gadzhiyasulov because he is a guy by all accounts and records that has this kickboxing background, but he's landed 11 takedowns in his first 2 UFC fights. Like, he got Molina, the guy that Zachary Reese just fought. He got Jose Molina in his Contender Series bout.
Dude with the fucking crazy chin, bro.
Yeah, dude, he's got an insane level of durability where Gadzhiyasulov was pretty dominant in that fight, wasn't able to get him out of there. And then Ribeiro's a guy that has shown an ability to make it to the end now. Zhang Mingyang got him in the first round with pretty extreme power, but I see him as very skilled. Not a ton of power, like What did you say decision was in this fight? Because
Decisions plus 220, knockouts plus 310. I think you're bringing up some good points here, though, on Magomed is like,
yeah,
Ribeiro is probably a guy that's hard to get out of there. And then Medina has that crazy chin. 2 fights in a row, Magomed's now won by decision. This might be the value spot to take the KO here, whether it's on the feet or on the ground or with the ground and pound. I kind of like that number at plus 310, if I'm being honest.
yeah. I really like both of them, honestly. I wonder what KO decision pays here. I don't see him as a guy with a ton of submission danger. Let's see, KO decision minus 125. So we're talking about backing up the Brinks truck with a safe parlay line. I'm checking. Have we seen? No, we haven't seen an official UFC submission attempt from him.
I mean,
yet.
who's the best guy you think Bruno Lopez has even beaten?
And that's another thing we're going to get into because we will have to accept or reject chalk with some guys coming off the Contender Series. I did not rate his Contender Series opponent the second time around, the Sansiami guy.
Yeah.
I did not think I thought that was more of a layup to kind of get Lopez back in the swing of things, and that's the guy that was on UFC's radar. And I don't love his level of competition entering this one.
And that took him 9 minutes to get him out of there as well.
Right.
Interesting. I'm leaning Magomed by knockout here. I think I'm going to go with that. I'll have to watch some more footage and see if that makes my card. But
I think on principle, you and I love doing this. Hasn't had a knockout in a couple of fights, but regionally, this guy was a knockout stud. So
exactly, this is a great spot, I think, for him to get it.
Yeah. So we'll bookmark that, even though I can't wait to find out what you have for the knockout pegged already in the cycle, what you're teasing me with. But hopefully it's not here. This back to women's flyweight. Ernesta Kareckate, I always say that name wrong, taking on Nicole Caliari. Caliari was on the Contender Series this last time around. She got a first round submission of Laframboise. I forget the girl's first name at this point. Connie Laframboise, easy for me to say, from Canada. And Kareckate is a girl that I've now backed both on her Contender Series and in her last fight. Super close fight with Diane Barbosa. Went to a split decision in Brazil last year. Kareckate is kind of a girl that I kind of like. There are a lot of tools on her. She's very long in this division, and I'm not alone. She's minus 295 in this fight. So, all of a sudden, I can't just bet her money line here blindly. I have to ask a lot of questions. Caliari, we don't know much about. You have any strong thoughts on this fight?
I mean, I like Ernesta. She's a big favorite, obviously. I like her hands, like her power. This chick she's fighting's got some nice submissions, but I just don't think she's able to impose that in this matchup.
Right.
I just think, Ernesta by decision is the most likely outcome, but I think that's what wins here. It's minus 125, I think, right now, minus 125.
Yeah. I think that's a fine number for that in a fight that has such a trajectory to go the distance. And really, Kareckate was a big underdog in the Contender Series against Carly Judice, who we saw in UFC, put on a really impressive performance against Gabriela Fernandez. And then she was a big underdog against Barbosa, ends up nearly covering her number. I think Caliari was a little outmatched at distance against a fighter that I didn't rate very highly there. And to me, that is where Kareckate may finally get to do what she wants to do, which is not defend takedowns all fight. She might be able to stuff the takedowns and really get her hands going in this fight. But at the end of the day, it's women's flyweight. Haven't seen any sort of power indicators on either side here. I'm with you. I think that's a fine price for Kareckate decision.
Maybe we keep that one in our pocket for maybe the decision later. At least consider it.
It's a weird card for decisions, so I certainly don't want to rule it out.
Yeah, I feel like the cycle that I hit, we had a female decision, didn't we? On one of them,
we did. No,
it wasn't on the cycle.
We took Eduardo Maura by decision last year as the first leg.
Yeah.
And
that cycle didn't hit. We just mixed up the KO and sub legs.
Yeah, with Jim Miller.
That was a nice
yeah,
Eduardo Maura by decision. That was such an elite read.
Yeah,
but this one's a little different. It's a 3-1 favorite. Like we took, I think, the small dog by decision, and it paid nicely. It was like 2.5 to 1 or something.
Yeah, Maura steamed to close as the favorite that day. We got way ahead of that when we put out the cycle in that fight, so that was a good one. But we'll think about it. We'll move on here and talk about this next fight. Another Contender Series prospect, and maybe one of the most impressive, Jacoby Smith, a guy that they built some of the season around here at welterweight. He got a dominant second round stoppage. It's like they probably could have stopped that fight maybe 20 times before they ultimately did. It was pretty gruesome. And as a result, UFC thinks highly of him. They're giving him a guy that has had some UFC success, a multi-time winner here in Preston Pressure Parsons. And Parsons has been a guy I know you haven't been out on in general. So you see him hanging plus 350 or whatever it is that FanDuel's plus 370 now that FanDuel's got him there. It's a little bit appealing when we don't know a lot about Smith, but what are your thoughts on this fight with Jacoby?
Yeah, no, I like Preston Parsons in general. I just think this is not a good fight for him.
Yeah.
I actually like his wrestling. I like his scrambles. I like his versatility in general. But this is the guy, chat, everybody we were talking about earlier. Like, this is the guy, Daniel Cormier is comparing to Khabib. If you watch his takedowns and ground and pound, it looks just like Khabib.
Yeah.
Like, I watched a lot of footage on him. Like, the way with how violent he is with his takedowns and pure ground and pound and the way he just rains shots down on guys, it reminds me just like Khabib. This guy's super strong, great wrestling background.
Yep.
I like him a lot. I think you nailed it when you said that, for the UFC to give him a guy in Preston Parsons in his debut, pretty much, like, that shows they're pretty high on him.
Yeah.
So it's crazy because the KO is the most likely outcome for Jacoby. And I think it's that ground and pound. I think he's going to get it with that ground and pound. I think Parsons is going to be a tough guy to submit.
Yeah.
And I think he's just going to get in top position and rain shots down until the ref stops it. So I like Jacoby Smith by knockouts, plus 105 right now. I considered it for a leg of the cycle, but I found something that's a little better number, so we can talk through what you like, even if you even like this at all.
No, yeah, I came in here with no strong opinion of how I wanted to back Jacoby Smith, but I do feel like it's a place where UFC prefers to not let him down. An interesting comparison with Khabib, especially from the fact that early in Khabib's career, he didn't really have a lot of submission danger. Like, Khabib was not submitting a ton of guys. It was smashing. Like, that became the whole meme, the smash like thing, right? And that's because this guy very similarly prefers to do it with ground and pound, but like, I wouldn't rule out a standing knockout here. I think Smith has gotten a couple of standing KOs regionally.
Or even up against the cage, bro. In that clinch, he ripped some vicious power.
Yeah, and like Parsons has now been in a lot of consecutive fights where they were fought where he preferred to fight them, and that they were grappling exchanges. He got the better of Semmelsberger there. He ends up losing to Trevin Giles by split decision there. Like, they were closer contested fights. If he's not the stronger grappler here and Smith prefers to stay at distance, I feel like that's where Parsons has struggled historically. He was knocked out in his debut on short notice against D-Rod, Daniel Rodriguez, and like, Smith is a guy to me that has a ton of power in that overhand right. So like, I was leaning knockout before you said anything. I think I'm there with you. This is a tough money line for a guy who I thought he didn't fight someone very good on the Contender Series. Yeah. We don't ultimately know until we get to the UFC level. But at the same time, man, I think at this stage, Jacoby's a guy. There are two prospects on this card that I think were maybe the two best prospects we saw in the entire Contender Series season. Jacoby Smith is one of them.
Yeah, and if you wanted to take double chance, Jacoby by KO or decision is minus 310. I agree with you. I don't think he's subbing him. I don't think he even looks for those subs that often. I think he looks the ring ground and pound, and he looks for control. And I think that brings the odds down a little bit, but it's still expensive to me, even at minus 310. I'm just going knockout at plus 105. I can't take my eye off that number. We'll have to figure out if we like that in the cycle layer, if we like a couple other options here later in the show.
Can I ask you a question for like a main card setup? You think maybe 1-2 or 2-3 here?
I think 1-2 all day.
I do. It
actually concerns me the later this fight goes against Preston Parsons.
Yeah, he's got great cardio, and
I can see round one.
The one note that I had is that even though I didn't think he was fighting a very tough competitor in his debut, I feel like Jacoby Smith showed great endurance in that Contender Series appearance. He never slowed down despite beating the absolute crap out of this guy for upwards of 10 minutes. So I thought at least that alone was impressive. So why don't we move forward here? We'll take a look at the next fight on the card here. Actually, the first one I was able to model of 2025. So my model might actually help me give more than baseline.
I'm so interested to hear your thought. I think this is the most interesting fight. Just not the most entertaining fight of the card, but I'm so interested to see how this fight plays out.
Me too.
Because I think the grappling of each guy is going to be, it's just a great matchup.
Yeah, this is a great matchmaking by UFC because you have Thiago Moises a little bit on a slide where he loses to Ludovic Kline in his last fight. He got hurt. Really, Kline was dominant in that effort against Thiago Moises. He's still training with the Fighting Nerds, which is it could be explain the minus 200 because those are guys you don't want to trifle with fading. But Trey Ogden's been a guy that's also been red hot in UFC. I was looking at his record earlier this week. He might be even a little bit undersold because he had that weird submission that was reversed by Keith Peterson, getting it wrong in the third round. You and I both lost money on sub. And
I still so mad about that. I guess Nicholas Mota, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Ogden is a guy that he now is a veteran. He's got his own gym. He's got a few other guys that have been successful in UFC, and he's really put together a better career than I ever would have dreamed after his debut. So decently close betting line right now, minus 184 Moises, FanDuel, and Trey Ogden plus 142. So what do you think about this matchup since you said you find it interesting?
I think Trey Ogden's entering his prime, and that's at 35 years old. So that's crazy to think. He has his own gym now. He's very well-rounded. I want to say well-rounded because he actually has decent striking. He uses the jab well.
Yep.
He's grappling super good. He's high fight IQ. Even Nicholas Mota said, or I forget who was it that said, it was like Kurt or Nicholas. I can't remember who said it, but one of them even said like this dude just does just enough, so he just wins fights. He has 2 straight decision wins. The fight before that, he should have got that round 3 submission. We should have cashed on that. And then his loss against Ignacio Bahamondes, I think that's a guy that's a future contender in 2, 3, 4 years. So I think I don't really hold that loss against him. The Jordan Levitt one's tough back in 2022. That one I kind of wish he could have won that fight. But Daniel Zellhuber, beats Daniel Zellhuber by decision. I think highly of Zellhuber. I think he's a good prospect. I'm struggling with this one. I think Ogden's going to have the better takedowns.
Yeah.
You can argue who is the better, jiu-jitsu. Moises maybe off his back. These guys both have good submissions. But I think Ogden's going to be the better wrestler, and that's why I almost want to do a dog pick here. I like this fight to go the distance, though. This is probably one of my favorite fights to hit the cards.
I love it, man. Model read and my anecdotal read is Ogden points here. I think it's undervalued. I've got Ogden at plus 115. And the reason why is Moises hasn't been great defending takedowns. He's accepted some of those positions. We saw it against Kline. And I think that Ogden wet blanket is probably the most likely outcome of the fight. Now, Moises has been fighting tougher competition. I think at distance, especially Thiago's kicks could be a differentiating factor as far as how he has offensive success. But like you mentioned, I think Ogden is responsible, uses his jab well, really looks to set up his takedowns. And the thing that's so fascinating for me about this matchup is Ogden's now had a bunch of consecutive matchups where the other fighter actually has really great takedown defense. Zellhuber, Moda analytically, Loic Radzhabov not to be trifled with there. At least on paper, Moises is a guy that is a little bit easier to take down.
Takedowns in the Zellhuber fight?
I don't think he did. Now, Zellhuber kind of froze in his debut in that fight. I remember that everyone expected much better. He got 1 on 9 attempts, so not a very good wrestling performance, but he outworked him at distance, which could also come to play when Moises is very low volume there, just 2.39 significant strikes landed per minute. So I like a dog shot on Ogden at this price. And, when we get off here, I'm going to have to find a way to get plus 150 because it's still out there on a couple books. It's down to plus 142 at FanDuel, but you can get if you can still get a decent number on him for sure.
Yeah, and I don't even just to be clear to everyone, I don't even know that I'm going to play a dog shot on Ogden. I mean, Thiago Moises is my guy too. I like him a lot. Sure. I think he outpoint him on the feet maybe, but I think Ogden is a little bit better at wrestling. Just to be brutally honest with how I feel, and I think that Ogden could wet blanket him a little bit if Moises just gives up. If Ogden gets on top, Moises can kind of get comfortable on his back a little bit here, and I don't like that for scoring the round, but I like this fight to go the distance either way. I think we should look at that as a leg in your safe parlay. If I have a bet here, it's minus 225 on FanDuel.
Yeah, minus 225. Now I have a weird amount of chunk of submission equity for Moises here. You guys flashing that up there, say backing up the brakes truck. But I have a weird amount of Moises. I'm not opposed, but I have a hard time seeing Moises submit Ogden, which is how my model tells me this fight ends inside the distance.
But you could see Ogden subbing Moises.
I don't really see either guy finishing.
That's why I love this fucking over, bro. And Moises went to round 4 with Islam.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it doesn't always mean anything because we see crazy shit in MMA where you're like, oh, this guy went this long with this guy, and then they come out and get knocked out in the first round against another guy. But I just think this one hits the cards.
Yeah, I mean, Moises subbed Melky Costa, but Costa was up in weight in that fight. But the rest of his UFC subs, Christos Giagos,
Yeah,
and Michael Johnson. So it's like not very strong grappling threats. And it's like, this is where Ogden lives. Ogden lives on the mat. He just took Radjabov down a few times and was able to really control him throughout the duration of the fight. So I can't see the Moises sub. So I'd be willing to look there in my safe parlay.
for sure.
All righty. Let's move forward here to the next fight up on the card here. Another one of those Dana White Contender Series accept or fade the chalk propositions. Marco Tulio coming off it. I will admit an impressive result in his second Contender Series appearance, taking on a guy in Ihor Potera that, man, doesn't it seem like Ihor's really active? I feel like we talk about him every 3 or 4 months, man.
Yeah.
Like he jumps in there quite a lot. He hasn't always gotten his hand raised. In fact, I'm pretty sure he's only done it a couple of times in his appearances. But
Yeah, he's
Potera,
3-5 in the UFC.
that's better than I thought. That's honestly way better than I thought.
Well, one of those are Contender Series, so 2-5.
Got it. Yeah. I mean, but like Potera, we've seen really some highs and lows, even in those losses. We've seen him very close to victory.
Don't remind me, bro. Don't remind me about that Rodolfo fight where I was holding a plus 1,900 ticket and he gassed after. And again, that fight could have been stopped depending on the referee. But Ihor Potieria is a guy that I genuinely like. Like, he looks good in some of the losses. The Michel Pereira fight sucked, but he looked good in the Cesar Almeida fight, or decent at least. He looked decent in the Rodolfo fight. So those are 2 losses that you at least take a little something with it, right? You're like, okay, I look decent. Now, the Michel Pereira fight and the Carlos Ulberg fight, he got dominated, right, in round 1. So he's a little bit up and down. But I was watching footage on Marco, and I think he's actually the real deal. When we first talked, because I know we try not to talk about before the show, but we did talk about this one for a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Now I was like, oh, Ihor's a live dog. I really watch a lot more tape on Marco, and I think he's actually pretty good. Yeah.
I think Tulio should be favored here. I think he's got a better, well-rounded skill set. Potieria is not always defensively sound. It's a little bit like his fight against Bellato, like you mentioned, where we have light heavyweight listed here. Potieria has kind of gone back and forth between the two. Is this fight at 185 or 205? I'll double check here. I'm pretty sure it's
is it a graphic error?
It's at middleweight. It's at 185.
Is it really?
Yeah. So I thought Tulio was a 185er, so that's why I wanted to ask. And in general, I feel better about Potieria if I can get him down at 185. I know he's in tip-top shape, and he honestly made the cut just fine, and I feel like he's going to be the bigger guy here. Whereas, the fight I invite people to turn on as to why I think I'm taking a dog shot on Ihor here. Watch Marco Tulio's first Contender Series appearance against Belgarui. I mean, Belgarui is this big, tall, lanky guy that has a hard time putting together combinations, and Tulio went the distance with him. Like, I have a hard time seeing him put Ihor away. He really struggled with doing so on the Contender Series with the opponent they had there. Potieria has shown this durability. He goes the distance with Cesar Almeida. Really, the guys that are getting Potieria out of there are really top-level guys like a Carlos Ulberg, Michel Pereira. I don't know. I feel better. I feel like Potieria is a little bit of a buy. I would still favor Tulio here, but I think this price is a little wide.
Let me try to sell you on a semi-long shot here because, as you said, Ihor, like, he's a guy that doesn't really go out cold for the most part. Like, he gets hurt. But we saw in the Michel Pereira fight, you hurt him, and then you find his back and sub him.
Sure.
And he was able to do that. I can see Marco doing that. I really can. The submissions plus 525. You know, if you watch some of his footage, like, he gets these knockdowns, and then he can go to the ground with you. And Ihor doesn't really get, when he gets knocked down to the ground, he gives up his neck. But then I looked at his overall record, and he has like 7 submission wins. Ihor.
Yes.
But there's just also early on in his career against lower level competition, But if he gets hurt, I think he gives up that submission on the ground. I really think he could. It's plus, I saw plus 500, plus 600, somewhere in that range. I don't know what it is on FanDuel.
Yeah, it's plus 600. That's interesting. I think I really want to play this over 1.5 minus 110. It's basically a pick 'em on FanDuel right now. I want to play this over. Now I will say the Tulio submission threat is probably how it goes under. He's shown that tendency on the Contender Series, but man, that seems like an interesting price when Potieria has been kind of an under-related fighter most of his year. Tulio, let's see, was he over this on the Contender Series? I'm taking a look. Oh my God,
By
yeah,
8
by 8
seconds,
seconds,
yeah.
by
Yeah.
8 seconds.
I think that's the one I've lost on by 8 seconds. If I remember correctly, I think he had the under, and it went over by 8 seconds.
Yeah, I think that Tulio, maybe like you said, he gets hurt. Maybe Potieria tires out a little bit. The submission is live, but yeah, I'm trying to figure out because we know Potieria. He's been in so many of these fights. He's had these chances to win. I asked you, you remember what I asked you blankly? I'm like, is he the obvious dog of the week, or is he just like the public chalk that's going to get smashed here by a really good prospect? And I still don't know if I have a definitive answer on that.
Yeah, my initial read was he's the public chalk that's going to get smoked, but then I went back and watched tape, and like I just like this guy.
Yeah.
185 is interesting though, and I wonder if the knockout's more live just on the weight cut.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think it's got to be. It's got to be. So maybe time to revise there. I don't think that was like a cycle spot anyway. I still trying to figure out my
thing far away from our cycle lay.
Okay, perfect. Maybe this next one will as well. Let's take a look at this flyweight bout between Jose Johnson and Felipe Bunis. Bunis coming off a loss in his debut that hasn't aged poorly. Josh Van has gotten a lot of people out of there recently in his very active schedule, but now Jose Johnson trying to cut down to 125 again. I was surprised. This dude's 6 feet tall. I was surprised he made it the first time without issue. Ends up actually going the distance with Asu Almabayev, so he's going to stick around at 125 and try to compete here. Very much a striker versus grappler dynamic in this fight. Just a matter of which side you lean, Matty. What do you think with Johnson actually taking a little money? He's minus 205 on FanDuel, as we say here right now.
He is taking money, isn't he?
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. I was looking for reasons to take Felipe by sub here, and I couldn't get there on it. I watched Felipe's fight back a little bit with Josh Van, but it was really bad quality. The footage and the tape I was watching.
Oh, okay.
But he seemed to have a little success in round 1 against Van, and then got put away later, I believe. I don't know. I don't know if this guy's good enough though. Like I think there's a reason Jose Johnson might be taking money here. The Asu Almabayev fight is what it is, lost by decision. And then the 2 fights before, like he gets a win by submission, but then loses to Damon Blackshear. I'm still very high on Damon Blackshear, especially after his last performance. So I don't take that away from him either. And then he hadn't lost all the way back till 2021 against Mana Martinez. I think Jose Johnson might edge out a decision here, truthfully.
Really?
I don't like it. I ain't playing shit on this fight.
Oh, okay. I like Bunis sub decision. It was one of the few things that I had that I like here. You look at Johnson, he's got just a 38% takedown defense. He's got the mold of a guy that you would think would get taken down over and over again, and he has in his UFC career. And like I see Josh Van as one of the hardest counter grappling matchups in all of flyweight. I talked to you about that with Cody Durden. We were split on Cody Durden because I was like, Van's counter grappling is so hard to count on failing. And look, Bunis did have a little bit of success, but he totally gassed in that fight. Josh Van hit him with some body shots. He ended up getting knocked out in the second round. I don't think Johnson has near that counter grappling. So I believe Bunis here could either control 3 rounds. Maybe he finds a sub, but I find it a little far-fetched when Asu Almabayev was not able to, like Johnson actually has the UFC submission over Chad Anheliger, and then how he lost via sub was the twister from Damon Blackshear. That was up in weight, and like it's a twister, man. Like sometimes you just get caught in one of those unorthodox submissions that not many guys know how to do. So I think Bunis points is probably the lean here, and then you could add sub decision plus 195 if you wanted to.
Yeah. I agree with that comment, though, that I could see him be the dog trap of the week.
Interesting.
I know you like him, but again, I'm probably not playing this fight whatsoever.
It's probably fishy because I sound like a fish because Johnson's a minus 200 favorite at 16-9. Like I do think Johnson should be favored. In general, think he's the much better striker, and it's kind of hard to trust Bunis' gas tank at this point. But to me, this line's a little wide.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, no strong feeling. Again, that's kind of what we led in the show talking about, and I haven't developed a lot of strong feelings in many spots. This
Yeah.
one's different, though. Uros Medic taking on Puna Soriano. Soriano's going to stick around at 170, and why not when you absolutely dominate Miguel Baeza for 3 rounds in his 170-pound debut. Taking on the Doctor, who quickly hasn't needed much time to perform surgery. 6 UFC wins, all of them by knockout, 5 of them in the first 2 rounds. So Uros usually can get his hands going and get you out of there quick. He slept Tim Means. Poor Tim Means, man. That fight seems cruel in hindsight. But what do you think of Medic here taking on Soriano when both of these guys, I think, have a decent argument to win the fight?
I think there's an argument for Soriano by decision here. You know, if he goes right back to the wrestling like he did, I really think it's live here. I liked Uros Medic a lot, dude, but like recent footage just shows he's just not as good as I thought he was.
Really?
I think so. I mean, let's see. So Medic by KO is still the most likely outcome here, plus 145. So you're on the Medic side.
I love Medic by KO here, bro.
Okay.
My model's got it minus 160. It's just showing insane. When in reality, I don't think I would bet his money line here. I would simply bet the KO, because if he doesn't get it,
let's just talk through how some of his wins are aged. Matthew Semmelsberger, it took him halfway through to round 3.
Yeah,
to get him out of there. It was a spinning back fist. Then you look at how some of Semmelsberger's, how he's done since then, right? He lost to Jeremiah Wells, lost to Preston Parsons, and then Charles Racky finished him in the first round. He looked like a sitting duck on the feet in that fight somehow, right? And then the Tim Means fight, who cares? Everyone's either chinning or subbing Tim Means. And then the Orobai fight, he gets neck cranked against Orobai, who then goes into couldn't put Elvis Brenner away, got into a war with Rebecca, ended up losing. Yep. So I just think some of these fights haven't aged as well as I thought with Medic.
Yeah.
And I just worry that Soriano, the bigger guy against the kickboxers, can come in and get takedowns. But so I'm struggling with this one a little bit.
Yeah, I think that I definitely think that you're right in that if you like Soriano, I think it is a decision. And 5 of the 6 UFC
plus
takedowns,
490.
Yeah. 5 of the 6 UFC takedowns that Soriano got was in his last fight. And to be honest with you, I had a hard time processing Soriano's last fight because Miguel Baez is this guy that I really liked. He was in this competitive war with Santiago Ponzinibio, and he looked. Is Soriano a monster at 170, or is Baeza just shot? Like it's a hard line in the sand to draw, and I think it pretty much that question determines whether or not you think he's undervalued.
Let me ask you this: what would you line Roman Kopylov versus Medic?
Kopylov Medic?
Yeah.
Well, Kopylov's a lot bigger, but I think it would be competitive at distance.
Yeah, but I mean, Soriano fought Kopylov, went into the went 8 minutes with Kopylov before being put away. Now he was getting picked apart.
Yeah.
But I just think this could be his weight class at 170.
Yeah. I really, that's what this fight comes down to, is that if you're willing to buy the Soriano small sample, I get it. I'm not. And by the way, there's a typo on our graphic. It's my bad. 5'11" for Soriano, not 5'1". If there was a foot of height difference here, we might be having a different fight. But I think that if Soriano takes a wrestling-oriented approach, Medic's just a 55% takedown defense. It could be an issue, but at the same time, Soriano's distance head striking defense is awful. This is very much a nightmare matchup for both of these guys. It'll be interesting to see who wins out. I'm a little concerned that KO is so long because it really concerns me then, like, what am I missing as far as how else is Medic going to win this fight? Because to me, if it goes the distance, he probably struggles with takedowns. And then he's also got the submission danger, both of his UFC losses by sub. So
if you take Medic by KO, you like 1-2 or 2-3?
1-2 for sure. If the longer this fight goes, the more he's probably struggling with Soriano's wrestling. No.
Yeah. Do you think Soriano? You like his gas tank at 170 if he's just relentlessly wrestling? Because I almost think I could almost see a world where Medic is down and he gets a late one. Yeah,
it looked good in that fight against Baeza, but Baeza really didn't make him work at all. So it's just a tough question to ask. I almost kind of feel like I need to rewatch that fight in full again before I place any sort of bet on this fight, because I need to be sure about whether I really want to buy what Soriano was doing. Now he's taking money. He was plus, let's see, Oh, actually, I have that backwards. He was, let's see, what was Soriano? He's plus 162 on Sunday. He's plus 176 now. So
Oh,
actually,
wow.
Medic is taking a little bit of money, but like
Yeah,
it's a favorites world, or at least it was in 2024. So I'm not
right.
surprised by that.
Yeah, this is another tough one.
Yeah, it's a tough one. But I think you and I's general fight tenor is correct. It's just a matter of who's going to end up getting it done. So
Yeah.
why don't we move on to the fight that I guess has consumed the gambling world this week? Because we got people saying, you better not say Bashi looks like Khabib, because Austin Bashi, one of the most notable famous prospects in UFC in quite some time. I mean, I heard about this guy on the regional scene. That's how you know he's made an imprint, dominated his Contender Series fight, ended up getting a second round finish in that fight. Now he's thrown off the deep end to a guy in Christian Rodriguez that's kind of notorious for taking prospects O's. He did that to Cameron Simon. He did that to Raul Rosas Jr. Can he do it here at 145 to Bashi? It's an interesting question, and odds makers don't think so. He's a minus 290 favorite. So do you like Bashi or Rodriguez here, and why?
I absolutely love Bashi. I think this is a great spot to take him. Everyone's talking about Christian Rodriguez, how he beats these up and coming prospects. The thing is Bashi has done it the right way. He's had now his 13 professional fights. It doesn't matter. He's only 23 years old. He's well rounded with striking, wrestling, his submission abilities. I absolutely love this submission number. I'm blown away by it. It's my favorite play on the entire card. Plus 470. I can take Bashi to win by sub here, who is going to be the bigger, stronger guy at this weight class.
Sure.
And, dude, Christian Rodriguez tapped pretty quickly against Julian Erosa. Erosa didn't even have leverage from bottom position. He somehow wrapped that guillotine. I think it was a guillotine.
It was. It was a
he somehow. I get it that Julian Erosa has crazy guillotines, but that dude was laying on his back and somehow found that. And I think Christian Rodriguez is so overrated. He's winning these fights as a weight bully, missing weight. He's coming up here. I think Bashi's going to ragdoll him. If Christian Rodriguez tries to come forward on the feet and put pressure on him, I think Bashi's going to take him down. I think it's going to be big wrestling takedowns, big slams to the ground, and I think he's going to eventually find the back or find something. So, but I also like Rodriguez's chin, which makes me like this submission even more because I understand the ground and pound is live here. I need to plug this laptop in real quick, bro. But yeah, I love Bashi by submission here, plus 470. So I want to hear what you think.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Matty. I think it's the gap in bantamweight versus featherweight sample for Rodriguez. He realistically is 0-3 at 145 if you count the Bulgarian decision that most of us thought was a blind robbery a couple years ago, right? And he's 0-3 at featherweight and then almost undefeated at bantamweight. Like you said about the weight aspect, a little bit of a bully. Now, Bashi has competed at 135. But I think this is just a young guy that's filling into his frame, and he's probably going to be a 145 or moving forward, if I had to guess. I don't think it's these guys are two bantamweights that can't make the weight class type of thing, as much as Bashi is just gaining mass as he gets older, a little bit like Chase Hooper moved up 10 pounds when he started to fill into his frame. And I'm with you. I love Bashi as a prospect. I think he can do it all. I think his hands are super underrated, which could be a story of this fight if Rodriguez is able to stop some takedowns. And it could look very similar to the first part of that Isaac Dolgarian fight where Rodriguez was really getting mopped. And then Dolgarian started to get tired. That's what set up the split decision heard around the world. But I think Bashi's cardio is a little bit better. He seems incredibly trained, well-versed, and his Contender Series numbers are out of this world as far as activity is concerned. Like, this is not a guy I want to be on the other side of, even as much as I respect what Rodriguez did a bit ago at 135.
Agreed completely.
So do you like a specific angle here? The sub, you said?
Bashi by sub plus 470. If you are willing to approve it, I'm putting that shit in the cycle lay. Plus 470 for a guy that has 5 wins by submission is going to be bigger and stronger and better wrestling. I love this number. It gives us some flexibility to do some smaller legs in the lay.
Yeah, I mean, my thesis is Bashi dominant ground win. So if you're really attached to the submission, I'm not going to oppose you.
Let's run it. I think it's early too. I think it's late round 1.
Yeah, that would be quite the statement after going outside round 1 on the Contender Series to hop in here and get it done round 1. But I almost kind of wish Rodriguez didn't lose to Erosa in his last fight, because then to me this number would be way tighter. So it's a product of the results. But why don't we move on here to now we're starting to get into fights with guys that have these samples. I was actually able to model this fight as well. Chris Curtis taking on Roman Kopylov at middleweight, a banger. I think this is in the rankings. Does Curtis still have a number next to his name? I'll check. I don't pay very much attention to them, and neither does Dana White.
None of the rankings mean anything.
Yeah, not that they mean anything, but this is a banger. Two guys that love to slug it out on the feet. Kopylov right now minus 280 on FanDuel. He is the favorite, but Chris Curtis has cashed as a dog before. What do you think about this fight, buddy?
Yeah, I mean, look, the question is Chris Curtis gonna shoot any takedowns, which he really never does, right?
Yeah.
So you have to ask yourself, who's actually the more well-rounded striker? And I think it's Kopylov by far, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, he actually has kicks, right? He goes to the body, goes to the head, goes to the legs. Chris Curtis just wants to, he literally just wants to get in front of you and get in boxing range and try to find big shots. But he has huge knockout wins against guys like Buckley and Chris Curtis. When you see a plus 215 price tag next to his name, you almost want to just take it no matter what.
Right.
But I think Kopylov by decision here is kind of what I think is how the fight's going to play out.
Yeah, this fight being a 3-rounder certainly opens up the points props to me. Like there's just less time to work, and I think both of these guys are measured and relatively patient. I know betting Chris Curtis is an underdog. Dude takes the first round off like all the time. Like he always is in some sort of early deficit. He was against Brendan Allen, but yeah, there is gold here somewhere. If Kopylov points plus 105 is the shortest outcome of the fight. We got some sort of positive angle. Now, when I was able to model this fight, let me take a look at the results here. So I've got Kopylov a minus 185 favorite. And I've got the fight not going the distance 50.9% of the time. So I'm leaning the tiniest bit violence, and I've got Kopylov by KO. Let's see. So I've got Kopylov favored KO, and let me check what I've got the math at here. I've got Kopylov KO plus 160. I've got decision plus 280. So I've got KO a little bit.
Wait, you say that one more time?
I have Kopylov knockout plus 160, Kopylov decision plus 280. So I'm actually opposite from odds makers.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say I like the Kopylov decision, but it's a terrible number on the book at least.
Yeah, relative to my expectation, I think I'm going to end up on Kopylov KO here at plus 340. Curtis is a very durable guy, though. He's a hard guy to get out of there. He does have one career loss by KO TKO. I believe he came back in PFL. It did. Ray Cooper knocked him out back way long ago when Ray Cooper was. Yeah, that was big power.
The thing about Kopylov is like he's typically getting knockouts if they're a stand-in affair, right?
Yes.
When it's a straight striking match, he's getting knockouts more times than not, right? Put away Soriano, Ribeiro, Josh Frem. The Cesar Almeida fight, again, ended up being grappling in that fight, or I think Almeida would have won that fight, honestly. I think Almeida's getting better every fight.
Yeah.
But this is an interesting spot for Kopylov here. If he can beat Chris Curtis, he can propel himself, and you might be onto something just based off of pure number value here. Because if Chris Curtis does not get this fight to the ground, which we obviously don't expect him to, Kopylov is just always live, man. He's got head kicks. Yeah. He's got big shots to the body. Like he's just a sniper, bro.
Yeah. To my knowledge, some concerns here where Curtis is 37. He's coming off that bad hamstring injury that ended up losing him the fight against Brendan Allen. And then something weird happened with him and Sean Strickland. Like those two were very close training partners, and it doesn't sound like they are anymore. Curtis is still listed with Extreme Couture, but if we get some clarity in the chat, if anybody's heard anything, like is Curtis still at Extreme Couture or is he just working with a different group of people there? Because I remember there was also the Kopylov spy situation here. Did you see that on social media?
He apparently retracted it. I don't know though. He apparently apologized or something and said, but who the hell knows?
That's not a great mental state. It's the type of thing where like you're kind of assuming
just the issues with Strickland and the back and forth, and I don't know. I'm starting to lean towards the Kopylov knockout is plus 340. That's a crazy number.
Yeah, I certainly prefer that to his money line. Whereas if this goes the distance, Curtis points plus 500 definitely is the value of the 2 decision props.
Yeah. It's tough. It really is. I think if either one was plus 300, I would just take that one, right?
Yes.
Like Kopylov by decision was plus 300, I would just take it. If his knockout was plus 300, I would take that, which it is.
Yes.
I think you have to lean the number value here. That's why the number matters. It's not just like what we think is going to happen.
Kopylov has dropped 5 of his 8 UFC opponents. So that's kind of an interesting power note there. He's got sneaky power for a guy that's a little skinny kind of by frame. So just placement, accuracy. I think he's got some of the best
I'll tell you one thing. You know what makes me the most hesitant is just how good Chris Curtis looked in the Brendan Allen fight.
Yes.
You know, like that fight was very eye-opening. And that was back in April of last year. I'm struggling, man. I really am struggling.
I'm with you, but I also think Brendan Allen is like Chris Curtis's best matchup inside the top 10.
Yeah, I agree.
Because Curtis has elite takedown defense, which doesn't come into play here, and Allen can be a little sloppy with his head defense. And
then Curtis didn't put Mark Andre away, you know, who in hindsight, Mark Andre comes out and Joe Pyfer starches him early.
So did Dustin Stoltzfus.
So, dude, I'm starting to lean Kopylov knockout, bro. I kind of want. It's a great number.
I think it's a good number. And I think I would want to play 2-3 just because Curtis has been such a stalwart defensively, but where it'd be more of like an accumulation situation. But
it's round 2. It's definitely round 2.
Especially when my model's on the fence about it going the distance or not. So round 2-3 is where I think I'd lean. So why don't we move on? We'll put that in our back pocket. I think it's one of the most interesting fights we talked about. This one's very interesting as well. Cesar Almeida trying his best to replicate the Alex Pereira path of glory kickboxing to UFC championship at 185. He certainly won a lot so far. This probably his toughest test, though, against Abdul Razak Al-Hassan, the veteran coming off a fight against Cody Brundage, where he probably should have won. There was the back of the head nonsense that Cody Brundage is kind of well known for at this stage. But Razak Al-Hassan needs a win. Surprised me he was approaching 40 at this stage, and Almeida looking to get another big name on his resume. So what do you think about this fight?
I want to sell you on a cycle leg here, okay?
Okay. I
think that this is a textbook highlight knockout opportunity for Cesar Almeida.
Okay.
On Abdul Al-Hassan here. I'll tell you why. Hassan is a scary motherfucker. Like, big guy, crazy power, comes forward. Yeah. But if Cesar Almeida, is that not what you want as, like, you're an elite counter striker and kickboxer? I just think Al-Hassan's going to walk into something. I see it so clearly. I think the knockout's like plus 150 for Cesar Almeida. And I like that he's coming off a fight where he didn't get a knockout because I feel like we get a slightly better number. And that was that Ehor fight where a lot of crazy shit happened, right? There was like eye pokes and all sorts of shit. And every time it looked like he was gaining some momentum, the fight got stopped for a break with the pokes and the nut shot. I think it was a nut shot or eye poke. All sorts of shit happened in that fight, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And I think that Al-Hassan is a scary dude. Like, you don't want to toy around with him. You want to try to put him away if he comes at you. I think Cesar Almeida is gonna find a huge counter shot in this fight. And I think the UFC is going to start trying to build this guy up. I think that if he had another 1 or 2 fights before that Roman Kopylov fight, I think he would have won that fight. But he just got, Kopylov edged him out with the grappling and just a little more experience.
Yeah.
But I think, a little more MMA experience. But I think Cesar Almeida is the real deal, man. I love watching this guy fight. Sometimes a little too timid, doesn't look to put guys away. But I think this is the perfect matchup for him to do it.
Yeah, Matty, I'm split from you, buddy. I don't think I can endorse. I can't pay plus 145 for a knockout for a guy that doesn't have a UFC knockdown yet. He hasn't dropped anybody. And Razak Al-Hassan went the full distance with Buckley at 185. I mean, he didn't get dropped by Piper. He was submitted in that fight, which is a totally different animal here. Yeah. Usually they're kind of giving him these. He was knocked out quite a bit at 170. Chaos Williams got him. I'm trying to remember who else got it. Oh, actually, it was just Chaos
Piper,
Williams.
But Piper subbed him. But Piper, he actually looked a lot better than I thought he did in that Joe Piper matchup.
Yeah.
But Almeida did get a knockout. I know it wasn't a knockdown, but he had the ground and pound. Was it his debut or the fight after? The fight I have is the Dylan Bucka
Yeah,
fight.
yeah. I mean, like that was like Budka exhaustion related. I know he didn't get the drop, but like Budka had started to wane, and
No,
like
he stuffed all the takedowns, and then he the
yeah.
elbows, and then yeah.
I have Razak Al-Hassan more modeled to more likely knock out Almeida than the other way around. So like plus 145 to me is a pretty tough number. I prefer Caesar points if you like him here, and I think he could make it look easy at distance, but I just can't. These are big guys. We just haven't seen any power from Almeida. So like I obviously the cycle is your baby. I'll let you do what you want to do, and you see it so clearly. But
precision beats power in this matchup, though.
yeah, maybe so.
You're gonna see the big guy in Al-Hassan throw bombs, and Almeida's gonna dance around, just pop him with just the precision, bro. I can see it so clearly.
It's interesting this betting line is so wide. I think that if you like a minus 290 money line, you probably think that he does have the ability to get him out of there. I'm just on the other side. I feel like Razak Al-Hassan's a decent value bet here. It's a weird fight to me.
But how do you like his path? Like, you think he's gonna, get the wrestling going?
That's what I'm really struggling with, because my model likes knockout. I personally feel like it would more so be getting his wrestling going, maybe landing.
I would be shocked if Al-Hassan had the precision to catch Almeida on the feet. I would be shocked.
Yeah.
Now, could he grab him and throw him to the ground and maybe find vicious ground and pound? Maybe.
Yeah.
But I think the closer you get to Almeida, the more risk there is of getting put out. I really do. I just like this guy as a counter striker, and I think this is the matchup. This guy's going to come forward with crazy pressure and throwing bombs, and he's going to get countered.
Yeah, I think the concern is that we've seen Razak Al-Hassan wrestle at times, and then you look back at Almeida's fight against Roman Kopylov. Kopylov landed the first 5 takedowns of his career against Almeida, and so
I like that. I like that because he's probably done nothing but work on his game since then.
Yeah, I mean it is true, and like these gory guys, that's what they're drilling, right?
Think about it. Every time we see these kickboxers come to the UFC, it just takes 1 fight, 2 fight, 3 fight, and they finally figure it out and they get better. They get better at stuffing the takedown. So I just think this is going to be his coming out party on this card. I think it's going to be a highlight counter knockout, puts him back home.
Odds makers agree with you, man. I don't know what to make of that KO plus 145 number, man. It's
you like the what number was it better? You like the Roman Kopylov one better.
I do. I absolutely do. My model approved, and I
see a better number for sure.
Yeah. Interesting fight. I'm sorry that I undersold you there. At least I'm on the other side with Bashi, where I'm with you on dominant ground victory, no opposition. So why don't we get some fights in the barn here? We got the co-main event and main event to go. This is the co-main, the welterweight bout between Santiago Ponzinibio taking on Carlston Harris. Couple of old vets that tend to get finishes when we get him in there. So it's actually kind of a fun co-main event.
Again, bro, say that sentence again because it's my favorite play of the night. My favorite minus money play of the card.
So they tend to get finishes. I can get the exact amount. I think it's 12.20. I'll get the exact amount here for finishes. It tends to not go the distance. So it should be exciting between Ponzinibio and Harris. What do you think about this fight, man?
I like the fight to not go the distance. So I saw a minus 155 number on it. I think FanDuel was up minus 175. It's a little bit pricier. But I think both guys' paths are finishes.
Yeah.
Like Ponzinibio on the feet. Carlston Harris, almost all of his wins are finishes.
Yep.
Ground and pound submissions. Even when he was down bad 2 rounds to 0, he comes out and pulls out a sub late in round 3. Like, I think any second of this fight throughout 15 minutes, one guy can find a finish. So I really like this fight to just not go the distance. I think there's arguments for both guys here. But I just like the fight to not go the distance. I would say, what are your thoughts on the violent we call it a violent safe parlay. And we go this fight to not go the distance. And what was the minus 225 one?
I thought we had Moises Ogden to go the distance. I thought it was the opposite.
That's right. You're right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So it's one fight to go the distance, one fight not to. I think that's a great 2-legger. But you're the CEO of the safe parlay. So
we'll look at it. I certainly don't mind violence here. My favorite angle, I think, is Harris inside the distance. I really like him by KO or submission. I have Harris at minus 135 here, and he's a plus 100, 105 underdog, short underdog. Weirdly, where I am is kind of where the book opened, and now it's kind of moved toward Ponzinibio. I just don't feel like Santiago is quite the one hitter quitter that he used to be. He got Morono in the third round on short notice, but
and he was getting beat up on the feet that whole
Right.
fight. In my opinion, Morono was winning on short notice, wasn't he?
right. I thought it was at worst 1-1, and it could have been 2-0 Morono.
The one fight I hate is that Jared Gooden decision, right? I don't like that result.
Oh, well, I mean, that was on a few days' notice, and nobody finishes Jared Gooden. That dude's got
That's
barely
true.
any neck. Like, how long did Chidi and Joe Kwani beat the heck out of Jared Gooden and didn't finish it? Like, Gooden is made of Teflon.
That's true. That's fair then. Yeah, no, I like your I like your play here on just the finish, right? Because I think it could be ground and pound or submission, realistically. And Jeremiah Wells is a tough guy to get out of there too. He finished him late in that third round.
Yes,
he is a ground and pound, or I think it was a hook to ground and pound against Impa.
Yep,
in 2021.
I believe that was the fight that got Impa cut from UFC, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so. I mean, that's an insane. I mean, this guy's a finisher, right? Like, you're better off just going inside the distance than money line on this spot, in my opinion.
Yeah, to me, it's crazy that like he doesn't have. I think if you like this fight to go the distance, you're probably leaning Santiago, but low volume on the feet in recent fights. What you got?
No, you're right. You're 100% right. I misheard what you said.
I was just gonna say super low volume on the feet, and like to me that Muslim Salikov fight in his last fight was there for the taking, and he ends up losing a decision just by way of his own activity. And that's my concern against Harris. To me, Harris is a guy that I know he's only 1 year younger on the stat sheet, but it feels like he has significantly less UFC miles, and I feel like he's much more dangerous at this point. Harris.
Tell me what you think about this, bro. I really like this. I'm gonna go Carlson Harris round 2 plus 850, round 3 plus 1200. I'm in love with that.
Yeah, Ponzinibio is a tough guy to get out of there early, but I agree with you that. I feel like so I've actually modeled KO a little higher than submission here. Do you have a lean on one of those for Harris?
Say it again.
I've modeled knockout 19.2%, sub 11.5%.
I lean sub, but I think either is live.
Yeah.
What's the difference in numbers?
I've got
round 2, 3. Realistically, those numbers are great numbers. Plus 850, plus 1200.
Yeah, I've got KO plus 420, and then I've got sub plus 770. So I'm guessing knockout's going to be the one that shows value.
Plus 500 on both of them on FanDuel.
Oh, okay. So it is knockout.
I'm saying 50-50 between the two. That's pretty crazy.
That comes from Ponzinibio being hard to submit historically, and he's even faced some guys with pretty good submission danger.
I could see Carlson getting on top and raining some ground and pound.
Yeah.
I'm just going inside. I'm just going round 2, 3, bro. We're inside the distance. We'll probably both make my car.
Yeah, I really like that sort of angle, that lean. It's unfortunate FanDuel's inside the distance number is a little higher, but I think we can leave Ponzi behind. He's just not quite, doesn't have that same oomph it feels like in recent bouts. So makes sense as guys get a little bit older. But why don't we move on, Matty? We'll talk about the main event. That was the best transition in the history of this show. I'm getting better at it. New Year's resolution to get that underway. But Mackenzie Dern taking on Amanda Ribas in a fight that we have seen before. These ladies fought back in 2019. It was a pretty clear Ribas decision at the time, which was a pretty big upset when Mackenzie Dern was supposed to be the greatest thing since sliced bread. As we've seen the rest of their careers unfold, they're kind of very similarly ranked fighters. So we'll rematch them again. Interesting that UFC is choosing to do it now, Matty, and I got an interesting model result here as well. So what do you think of this match?
Tell me. I need to know.
I just think this line's a little wide for women's MMA with how inconsistent both of these ladies are. Like, they have these fights where Mackenzie Dern looks like Superwoman against Angela Hill, and then she goes out and gets dropped 4 times by Jessica Andrade, and then she's able to beat Loopy at distance, and just it's up and down with both of them. Where Ribas, remember the Macy Barber fight? She got ragdolled in Jacksonville back in the day. It's way up and down. I've got this fight exactly a 50-50 pick'em, which will obviously leave the betting value on Mackenzie Dern. But like, I don't know if either lady has a clear path to finish each other. I don't know if either lady has a clear path to thoroughly best the other on points. I assume Ribas is getting a lot of love because of the first matchup, but neither lady is usually the same on any given night in the octagon.
Yeah. I agree. This fight, I just hate that this is the main
It
event.
sucks, yeah.
Being honest, like these girls haven't fought in forever, and it's like is Mackenzie's Dern's. The thing I want to know is her wrestling improved,
Yeah.
right? Because like she got thrown by Amanda on the feet, and I think Amanda's too skilled to get subbed with Mackenzie off her back. Like I think so. I just think I think Amanda decision because Mackenzie's so tough. I think it's going to be Amanda by decision, but I kind of like the value on Mackenzie money line a little bit because I think it is closer to a pick-up. But I just don't love this fight from a betting standpoint, bro.
Yeah, and I kind of would want to take money line because imagine betting Mackenzie Dern decision and leaving the submission on the table, and you feel like an idiot if she grabs it. You know,
you got to just take money line, and even the ground and pound of the strike. I mean, it's such a small chance, but I agree. I think you just go money line if you're taking the dog here.
Yeah. So this fight is minus 196 to go the full distance. I've got it right about in the same neighborhood. I've got it 68.6%. So probably going to show the most value on Dern by points. And like Mackenzie tends to make these fights ugly and gross and slimy and competitive. Like the thing that I think benefits her here is that she struggled with Amanda Lemos's power. She struggled with Jessica Andrade's power. Not really any power from the Ribas side. She doesn't really have any of these marquee knockouts. In fact, she lost to Marina Rodriguez that way. Whereas Dern, we know Dern's striking defense is bad. She's not very great on her feet. She has a hard time getting takedowns. Like, it's very much a women's MMA type of handicap where there is a higher percentage chance, I think, than implied that Dern is the stronger fighter that's able to control the clinch, win a couple of grimy rounds, and get it very, very close. Maybe you even look at the point spread if you don't think Mackenzie wins, just a +5.5 type of number if she steals a round or two. But like, I have a hard time laying this chalk on Ribas. I really do.
I agree. I think it's dog or pass, or if you like Ribas by decision, go for it.
Yeah.
Man, this is tough. I just can't believe this is the main event, bro.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that it got moved.
We have UFC back, so we have to look at the bright side here.
I mean, and we'll get to it next week. You're going to be in Inglewood for UFC 311 at the Intuit Dome, home of my Los Angeles Clippers, right?
Yeah, so I have a flight booked, but I haven't booked this yet, so we'll see. But yeah,
gotcha.
I mean, it's Moicano's card, so I have to go.
Yeah, exactly. And like that card is loaded up with 6 fights that could be this main event. I think that's maybe why
insane, bro. Like, dude, they should have just put Moicano, Dariush as the main event here.
Yeah, that would. I mean, seriously, they probably would rather get the pay-per-view.
Last fight of the night next week. Is that crazy?
Wait, like on the prelims?
No, like.
It's on the main card, fourth to last.
Co-main, yeah. Like there are 2 fights before the co-main.
Yeah. Because they have 2 title fights, and then
you got Jamal Hill versus Yuri. You got Merab Umar. I mean, it's unbelievably. Yeah. The last 4 fights are just unbelievable. Like in that card.
Maybe if it was a live show, they would have thrown Moicano and Dariush here, but probably not for an Apex card. That's why we get this. But Matty, why don't we move and let's start to build some parlays because we got decisions.
Let's go. Let's move.
Okay, I know you said that I'm the CEO of the Safe Parlay, but I like the easy to understand, catchy design of Ponzinibio Harris doesn't go the distance.
Okay.
Minus 174, and then Moises Ogden does.
I love it. What's that got to do?
Plus 127. That's 30? A good number.
What is it?
Plus 127.
Dude.
I like that. And it's nice and easy to remember as well, which is a good thing if you're listening to this while you're driving or whatever. It's Ponzinibio Harris doesn't go the distance. Moises Ogden does. Nice and easy to remember. I love that when you talked about it. So not a good card for like money lines or safe parlay. Like I can't think of a money line I would even want to throw in here at its current value.
Yeah. Because if we want to make it a little juicier, we could.
Yeah. I definitely want to get the safe parlay rolling in the same spot. We actually got the one in Tampa. That was Alvarez and Drakkar Close doesn't go the distance as well as we had another one.
I hammered that one.
Yeah. So we're trying to make it 2 in a row for the safe parlay. I'd rather keep it safe. I tend to do so. So I'll send that over to Mike. That'll be the safe parlay. But now as we build the cycle, Matty, I obviously always defer to you here. Bashi by submission is the place that we're going to go first, right?
Yeah, we have to. That one is just pure consensus play. We get the bigger, stronger guy in his natural weight class. Young, up-and-coming prospect, but his experience, 13-0.
Yep.
I think he finds it. I really do. So we're going to go Bashi by submission plus 470.
Okay.
Now, let's talk about this decision lay here. Let's talk about what options we have first and foremost. I think we have Aliev by decision as an option. That's like minus 210.
Okay.
I think we have Ernesta by decision as an option.
That's a good yeah, I like that one a lot.
At minus 105. We have Trey Ogden and Moises either really as an option.
Yep.
I don't want to bet against Moises, dude. I just feel like it's gonna bite me, but I do like the number on Trey Ogden. The nice thing is we have a plus 470 leg in the lay. So if we want to go conservative on the decision one, we can.
Yes.
You know, like if we want to take like a minus 105 route, I think is a decent even the first fight of the night, bro. Minus 210 decision. The Dagestani just getting staying safe, bro. Staying safe against the black belt. I like it at minus 210.
I just don't. I don't. To me, because of the number, whereas you have the submission danger from Solecki, it's different than Grant Dawson, where I know Grant Dawson has elite submission defense. He showcased that. Aliev hasn't even really had to go through that sort of process. I just think it's a little sketchy. I do prefer Ernesta if we go there.
I think Ernesta's right at the top of my list as of right now. Let me just look at the main card real quick.
Because the thing you get with Ernesta, great takedown defense. That was how Caliari won on the Contender Series, and then she's got.
Let's go with it, Mike. Ernesta. Just put Ernesta wins by decision instead of Aliev.
All right, we're going with Ernesta minus
one. By far the best, in my opinion, the best value play on decisions because you're either going to pay minus 210 on the Dagestani by decision, or you're going to take more of a long shot risk on some of these other ones. And I actually think there's a lot of finishes on this card.
Yeah, I would favor Kareckate Caliari to go the distance rather than Aliev Solecki because I don't think it's crazy Aliev could get a ground and pound finish on Solecki on short notice either.
I mean, you could drop him on his head like
like your car close did. Yeah. That's what I mean is that
crazy to this day that there was back-to-back fights that happened just like that because Brundage did it the next fight.
I am so tired of betting Joe Solecki fights. I think that's what it comes down to. That guy drives me nuts. But what do you if you really love KO
real quick. So we have the minus 105 for Ernesta. So that's technically leg one, right? Yeah, that's leg one.
It is. And then Bashi would be leg two.
Most likely, yeah. Bashi leg two at submission plus 470. So with those two legs, we're already up to plus 1,000, essentially, a little bit higher.
Okay.
So we now have one more leg. We probably look at the main event here for this KO. Here are the options. Or not the main event, the main card. We have Cesar Almeida by knockout. I know you're not big on that one. We have Carlson Harris by knockout.
We got Kopylov
by Medic by knockout.
Yeah.
And we have Kopylov by knockout. Pretty much. That's unless you want to go to the Ehor versus Tulio fight. Dude, you know what I want to do?
What?
Bro, Jacoby Smith.
Let's do
it's conservative cycle lay, but let's start the year off with a fucking winning cycle parlay. Ernesta by decision, Bashi by submission, Jacoby Smith by knockout, plus 2,200. Bro.
I like that just because of the no tendency there. I will say Kopylov and Medic model approved, but I like.
I'll say this: if we go Kopylov, this number is going to be big.
Yeah. And remember the old gloves.
Okay,
the old gloves in effect for this card.
Let me send this one in the chat real quick for Mike, but I want to take a peek real quick at Kopylov. It is risky for sure against a guy like Chris Curtis, but the odds are going to be way bigger. But I'll be pissed if we skip on Jacoby Smith. I know this guy's ground and pound is going to get him to get it done. I can feel it.
I don't disagree with you. So if you'd rather go there a little bit more conservative.
Yeah, because again, my original read was Cesar Almeida at plus 150. Let me see. Where's Kopylov? Okay, so if we add Kopylov by knockout, that's a plus 340. It brings it to plus 4,800.
Okay.
Versus plus 2,200.
Yeah, but you also think of Curtis never knocked out in UFC. Like he had the eye poke thing versus a guy who's minus 560 taking on Parsons, who's shown chin issues.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, and the numbers are not that different for the circumstances. So I think we go Jacoby Smith.
Let's run it. There it is, Mike. Perfect timing.
Oh my god. Are we just going with Ernesto's first name? We're throwing out Kareckate.
Yeah, fuck her last name. I love this lay, dude. I absolutely love this lay. The hardest leg is second base, and I think that's gonna end up being the easiest one.
Yeah, so let me take a look. So do we have an official number for?
We have plus 2181.
Plus 2181 this week's cycle. I'm with you. I
100 or like 4,800 to win 100,000.
Yeah, I feel like next week we might get a little weird on UFC 311 and stuff. I know I'm gonna have to fight you tooth and nail on Moicano knockout probably. So we'll worry about.
Like the knockout?
I haven't modeled that fight yet. I have no idea how I lean in it at this point. So, but what I'm saying is we might get a little weird next week. Maybe we go for more of a conservative sort of layup here. It's weird. Ernesto's points is minus 105, right? Maybe that's just kind of the unknown with Caliari, but it's women's flyweight, bro. Yeah, absolutely. It's like a first round knockout, and gosh, we can't handle that. Usually the decision is okay. Hopefully Bashi doesn't win by KO and then Smith by sub, and we got it backwards again, because that would be absolutely heartbreaking. But it's a new year. And it's a new us. So we'll have all of these graphics out on social media so you guys can tell. There we have it put together. Thanks for sending that over. We're going Ernesto Kareckate by points. Austin Bashi by submission, Jacoby Smith by knockout, Dana White Contender Series alums, cycle parlay fitting for this card, UFC Vegas 101, and then the safe parlay we're going to roll with as well, plus 127. Moises and Ogden do go the distance, and Santiago Ponzinibio, Carlson Harris do not. We got our parlay set. It was great to be back. We'll be back next week to preview UFC 311. But until next time, guys, hope all your best cash and have a great weekend.
Give me Bryce Mitchell inside the distance. I think a knockout on the feet or maybe to ground and pound. It is crazy because Brian Battle by decision is the most likely outcome.
For the winner by split decision, Brian the Put.
You get minus 1,000 guy by the way he wins 90% of the time against the guy he already submitted in grappling at minus 130 to sub him. If it's a trap, you can take my money because I'm hammering it.
He's got it.
I think Asakura is a little bit overhyped. I like Pantoja by rear naked choke. Vicente Luque.
I see a darts coming, bro.
Yes.